Alright, if you're watching this video, odds are you're interested in buying a soundbar for your television. And I'm here because your friend or coworker or secret lover or Santa Claus has told you, please don't watch this instead. Now I'm going to explain to you exactly what is wrong with soundbars and how you can circumvent them for very cheap, for probably less than you're looking at a soundbar, and have a much better experience. Let me explain what a soundbar is. A soundbar is a bar of speakers, but most soundbars are made of plastic, and the problem with plastic is they don't make violins out of plastic, they don't make cellos out of plastic, they don't make trombones or anything. Well, those are made of brass, but they don't make them out of brass either. So a real speaker has to be made of wood, and if your speaker's not made of wood, it's going to sound wrong. Most soundbars also use very, very small drivers. Now in these are mica MB42X centers. These are 4-inch with a 3/4-inch tweeter. And the box is rather hefty. It's not as thin as a regular soundbar. That's because you need volume and you need air inside of it to make low end happen, to make sound happen properly. Now, what I'm going to go through now is an amplifier that has just come out, and there hasn't been one of these. There's been attempts, but none of them have been good enough to be recommended. This is an SMSL Q5, and what this does is it has 4 inputs: USB, let's say you have a home theater PC; optical, let's say you have a cable box; coaxial, again cable box or Blu-ray player; and then standard analog left and right. And you can use this for an iPod input or anything else that doesn't conform to the digital standards. Digital, 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 analog. So there's 4 inputs that you could choose from, and it just has a simple set of speaker terminals. And these unscrew, these are 5-way binding posts. There's a hole in there if you want to just thread speaker wire in that. I'm not going to do that today because I have these speaker cables, and I will link in the description similar. There won't be these, I made these, but they'll be similar with banana plugs, and banana plugs simply plug in like that, and they plug in usually to both amplifiers and to speakers, which makes life a whole lot easier. Now, since we're going with a soundbar replacement, I'm going to assume all this is going to be located under your television. Assume this is my television here, and we're plugging in some wires. Real easy, color coded, red to red, white to black, or black to black, depending on which wires you get. And I have both pairs. I'll hook this up first. The amp is really small. The power brick over here has a pretty long length on the 110 side and an even longer length on the 24 volt side. So you could hide this somewhere on the floor, run this very thin wire up. I braided it so it would get out of the way. Get this all wired up for you. Now, I'm going to hook up, I only have 2 sources. I don't have anything to test the coaxial digital or the fiber optic source, but it shouldn't matter. Everything is all the same. And again, these wires are long and white, and if you're scared of making your own speaker wire, I will link in the description my tutorial for how to build these, or to just use straight speaker wire if you feel adventurous and want to do that. So let's plug some sources into the back of this. I have a computer, obviously, up there, a laptop. That's going to get plugged into this USB terminal, and it comes with a special wire. It's a standard USB connector to another standard USB connector, which is sort of odd. So that just plugs in. The computer will recognize it and pop up and tell you want to use this, and you're going to say yes. I'm just going to plug everything in, assuming that you had all this. You would just use a standard RCA for coaxial digital. And again, if you're doing multiple inputs, you'd have home theater PC, cable box, or Blu-ray player, and then fiber optic is also cable box or Blu-ray player. I should have plugged this in second, but there you go. And then I just have what is essentially an RCA to 3.5mm, an auxiliary cable to RCA that goes into these inputs. So now everything is pretty much plugged in. This is the most stuff you could have. And then power. So there's power. So now let's finish off your soundbar. Let's throw this wire back there. Many people go with soundbars because they think they're simple, and they are simple. You put a bar under your television, you plug in power to it, and you plug signal to it. So if you only had a television, you'd only have speaker wire and then this SPDIF fiber optic. That'd be it. The USB wouldn't be hooked up, neither would the coax, neither would the analogs if you didn't need to use it. You can reduce this down to whatever you need, the minimal amount of connections you need. And the whole reason this works is because it comes with remote control. So let me plug all this stuff back in. This is, again, the maximum this can handle. And we'll take these centers and we'll put them under like that. Will this reach? I hope it reaches. There. And you would obviously hide this someplace better than this. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. Here. So now, why is this better than a soundbar? Well, A, the speakers are much better. These micas are pretty well known on the internet for anyone who's looking for cheap and good. So they're going to just sound automatically better. You're not limited to this either. Since you have separate speakers, it's not a one bar. One of the problems with soundbars is they're this wide. And when you're sitting at your television, feet and feet and feet away, you can't get any separation. There's no left and right. It's just sort of all in the middle. And with separate speakers, you can just do this until you're comfortable. And if you get something like these, like the Mica X's, which are center channels, these are $70 a piece, you can also do this and flank them on the left and right of your television, which is the proper way to do it. Under your television as a bar is flawed for several reasons. One, everything's too close. Two, the sound is definitely coming from below where you're watching. What you want is not that. You want the speakers to be to the left and right of the screen. So when things are happening on screen, both by the source, you hear it coming from the middle. When things fly off the screen, they go to that speaker and away. So everything here is hooked up. I should be able to, in Windows, because this is going to be my my source, I should be able to detect this. You wouldn't have to do this if you had this computer. You would just simply turn it on. Mute that for a second. And on the remote, it's power. You have to hold for a second to turn it on. Power to hold for a second to turn it off. Mute, which is that button. There's a couple features in this remote that are not enabled. Up and down is volume. So you're done unmuted. You can lower it. Lower and raise. It goes from 1 to 65. You shouldn't have to push any more than 30 on any speakers. These few buttons don't work. This is EQ, so you could choose treble, bass. Again, that scale goes from 1 to 13, and it defaults to 7. So your treble is at 7, bass is at 7, then you hit it again, you're at volume, and you could adjust that. This button here is source select. So right now it's on USB, so it's playing what's on the computer. There's music playing in the background. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's playing this. Right now it's playing this, which I can next track, put up the volume, or you could turn the knob to put up the volume. And if you wanted to switch sources, so now I want to switch sources without the remote, switch sources here, this arrow down. See, it says right in the front, coaxial, optical, or USB. So now we're on USB. Let me double check to make sure that the USB is working on the computer. If I can find it, there it is. Okay, this is set as a default playback device. I'll put up a movie. I think Edge of Tomorrow should be decent. And we're going to we'll skip ahead. That's what we'll do.
The Europeans have paid
to mimic and even anticipate our actions.
Mute that. I'm not sure if playing this back is going to get me pulled. So here's your soundbar replacement. You've got your little amp. All your sources are plugged into it. You can hit the center.
We have seen a stunning victory here.
You hit the center of this, and you can switch treble, bass, adjustments. You can do that. Quick press the power button.
This is an alien invasion in a global war. With a new jacket technology and limited amount of training, we've been able to create super...
Right. I held it down to shut it off. You hold it down to turn it on. You quick press to switch between sources in case you don't have the remote control handy. So that's auxiliary, that's my little player. Coaxial digital again doesn't have anything. Optical doesn't have anything hooked up. And USB is playing Edge of Tomorrow. So if you don't want speakers this big, this is about as small as I'd recommend going. These are the bookshelf version of the mica centers. These only have one 4-inch driver and a tweeter. And they're actually a little bit shallower too. So if you wanted to do the absolute cheapest soundbar alternative, I recommend this. Actually, we do tweeters on the outside because they're more locatable high frequencies. Something like this would be what you'd put under your television, or again on the sides, which is where it's much, much, much better. So then you get good sound separation and you get a center image. Anyone speaking on screen would come through both speakers at the same time, and as long as you're sitting relatively in the middle, you'll hear their voice coming from the center of the screen. I just didn't put these on today because these are slightly skinnier, and because if you're going to do for movies, you sort of want the extra drivers. Alright, mute. Now, these don't have any mounts on the back of them by default. They do sell... There's a port here. These are ported. So you'd want to keep them a little bit away from the wall. If you can. There are speaker mounts you could screw into the wall and just have these sit there. If you're going to put them on a cabinet, if you've got your TV on a cabinet, and you could just stand them up like this, or you could lay them down. And what I do recommend is you bring them to the edge of a cabinet, because when you have a speaker and you have it here, all the sound comes out of this, hits the surface, and will reflect up. And what happens is when sound comes out of this, it hits your ear, and sound comes out of this, hits the table, and then your ear, and it's a slight delay, and that can make things sound really weird. Trust me on that. So if you're going to set this up for your living room, you've got everything on a countertop, you just move these speakers like that. And there are detriments to using a speaker, a LCR, which has these, and doing them.
Perhaps. Maybe a career in politics?
Again, this is a 29-inch screen, so it's not exactly your 55. It would be much more
sense
grand.
of manifest destiny. Rags to riches, rapid rise through the ranks, born to deliver us.
All right. I think I don't have to tell you anything else. There's no subwoofer output on the amp itself. I have a video below that'll show you how to hook up a standard amplifier. This is a Martin Logan Dynamo 300. How to hook this up to a standard amp like this. If you want Bluetooth receive capability, you would take the analog input, and there are a ton of analog outputting Bluetooth receivers. You could just plug that into the back of this, and you'd have everything you need for a living room stereo setup that is not a soundbar. The whole point of this is no soundbars. It's like a movement that I've started. It's gotta be pushed forward. Soundbars are bad. Everything's better than a soundbar. Let's jump ahead.
No, of course you're not.
On you is enormous. 2 minutes to drop.
You will never get a soundbar that sounds as good as just a pair of speakers, even just a small pair of speakers, and this amp. You will not find a soundbar that's as good. When you need to add a subwoofer, if you've got a very large living room, watch the video that shows how to hook up the subwoofer. It's not very hard. You just simply have to split the speaker outputs, or run the speaker outputs through the sub first and then up, which is pretty straightforward. Let's put on some Wally for a second. Again, volume on the remote is up and down here. Left, right, center does nothing. These three on the bottom do nothing. Actually, this one resets one of the EQs. Let's put this up. And you could, of course, leave the speaker grills on. Whoa. Yes. Certainly better than any soundbar. You should need nothing else. You should need nothing else to make this work in your living room. There you go. Any other questions? You can go to my subreddit, which will be linked below, or message me here, or leave a comment below in the YouTube channel, and either this account or my alt account will come and answer it. And yeah, everything else should work out just fine. And your friends will stop bitching that you bought a soundbar or thought about it.